Welcome to a very special Safe Schools Rainbow Roundtable. We're doing this 4-part series on Project 2025. It's July 23rd, 2024, and this is Part 3. You may not yet know of Project 2025, but you will certainly come to understand its effect on your life starting January 20th, 2025, Inauguration Day. Project 2025 is a radically conservative 920-page manifesto on what Donald Trump, GOP, and evangelicals plan to do on day one of a new administration. The plan, largely written by the radically conservative Heritage Foundation, is anti-LGBTQ, anti-students and youth, anti-schools, will divide families, and draws a line in the sand for Christian nationalism and against diversity, equity, and inclusion, and much more. Our 4-part series will explore Project 2025. This is Safe Schools and the Rainbow Roundtable. Here's the Project 2025 mission statement. Quote, "It is not enough for conservatives to win elections. If we are going to rescue the country from the grip of the radical left, we need both a governing agenda and the right people in place, ready to carry this agenda out on day one of the next conservative administration. This is the goal of the 2025 Presidential Transition Project. The project will build on 4 pillars that will collectively pave the way for an effective conservative administration." End quote. This is a special Safe Schools Rainbow Roundtable exploring and understanding Project 2025 and its likely effects on LGBTQ+ students and youth. This special series is made possible with the incredible support of Richard Quadracci and the Quadracci Family Foundation. The Quadracci family has been instrumental in their support of the LGBTQ community. Thank you for your support of the LGBTQ students and youth from AHF and the incredible Florida AIDS Walk that in 2024 raised more than $3.4 million for vital LGBTQ nonprofits, including Safe Schools. Thank you for your support from Children's Trust of Miami and their recognition that LGBTQ students and youth are vital to the diversity of our schools and our community. Thank you from your support from Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network. This nonprofit media company developed this broadcast and platform powered by their mission pillar to support LGBTQ youth and students. To help us navigate this 4-part series on Project 2025, let's introduce our very diverse panel. First, let's welcome Rebecca Thompson, candidate for Broward County's public schools. Let's welcome social media influencer Tiffany Williams. She is the host of Safe Schools, Tiffany's Explains It All. Let's welcome special education and 7th grade civics teacher, Brian Bender. Let's welcome the gay guru, Al Ferguson, a longtime participant with RuPaul's Drag Race. He is the creator of television programs including It's Happening Out, The Faye What Show, and the world's only LGBTQ+ daily evening news show, Queer News Tonight. Let's welcome Harold Marrero. He is a pastor and the Chief Operating Officer for Safe Schools. Now let's dive right into understanding Project 25. This is Part 3 as we look at the tools and resources that are available to our LGBTQ+ students and youth, our teachers, our school administrators, and our families to face Project 25. We've discussed the potential impacts of Project 2025 on the queer community and explored fictional scenarios highlighting these effects. Now it's time to focus on what we can do as a community to fight back through education, advocacy, and most importantly, our vote. Education is the foundation of our efforts to combat these discriminatory policies. Being informed about our rights and the political landscape is crucial. Organizations like the Human Rights Campaign and GLAAD provide up-to-date information on queer rights and ongoing legislative battles. These organizations offer resources to educate individuals about their rights and the implications of proposed policies. Local LGBTQ+ centers and advocacy groups also provide educational workshops and seminars. Safe Schools South Florida, for instance, conducts training sessions for students, parents, and educators on queer issues and rights. Advocating for inclusive curriculums that recognize and respect queer identities is essential. This includes comprehensive sex education that covers queer topics and health needs. Collaborating with school boards and educational institutions to ensure that queer students receive the support and resources they need is a key action point. Advocacy involves raising our voices and pushing for change at all levels of government. Contacting local, state, and federal representatives to express opposition to discriminatory policies is a powerful tool. Personalized letters, emails, and phone calls can make a significant impact as well. Participating in advocacy campaigns organized by groups like the ACLU and Lambda Legal, which often provide templates and guidance for contacting lawmakers, is another effective method. Peaceful demonstrations and rallies are effective ways to show public opposition to harmful policies. These events can draw media attention and raise awareness about issues facing the queer community. Joining forces with other civil rights organizations to amplify our voices and present a united front against discrimination is also crucial. Voting is one of the most powerful tools we have to affect change. Ensuring that every eligible member of our community is registered to vote is crucial. Organizations like Rock the Vote provide resources for voter registration and education. Encouraging voter turnout, especially among young people and marginalized communities, is essential. This includes providing information on polling locations, early voting options, and mail-in ballots. Identifying and supporting candidates who advocate for queer rights and protections is vital. This includes participating in campaigns, making donations, and spreading the word about these candidates. Local elections are just as important as federal ones. School board members, city council members, and other local officials can have a significant impact on our daily lives. So let's get to our panelists' insights on how we can effectively use these tools and resources. What are some strategies for educating our community about their rights and the current political landscape? And how can we increase voter registration and build stronger coalitions with other civil rights organizations to amplify our advocacy efforts?
Well, there's the tough question.
Well, I think, like I said in the first segment, it's more than just voting, it's getting out. And it's also not waiting. Like, we are the people that are going to save us. We can't just wait for an organization to say, oh, you got to go talk to your neighbors. Like, you have to educate yourself on the issues, but just go out to talk to your neighbors. And if they ask you a question you don't know, I'm like, I don't know that. Like, let me find out for you, or let's look it up together. But I think people are waiting for someone to take the lead, and there's no one in our community that there are people stepping up, but they're stepping up in their small, very segmented groups. And so I think what I would encourage people to do is start going out and letting people know that all of your vote by mail registrations have been terminated as of January 1st. Like, if you vote by mail, you need to re-sign up. And that's something they can just say, go to the Broward County website, you can sign up there. Here's the number. It's very easy. But I think people are waiting to get told what to do when we just have to start.
Rebecca, I'm curious from my seat. You're running for school board. It's very important. School board, as Dan said, are as important as our national elections. You're canvassing and going into community in this environment that we're watching. We're talking about Project 2025 and what the conservative evangelical goal is of Project 2025. What kind of reaction are you getting when you're canvassing? Are you getting the impression when you're knocking door to door and putting yourself out in front of potential voting public of how dire the current times are, or you're not getting that?
Not really. There's a lot of people. So my election's August 20th, so it's a primary election. Most people don't even know that exists, or if they do know it exists,
we don't know that we're supposed to vote.
That we're supposed to vote. Right. It's also a lot of not apathy. I think we're in a very stressful time. Not giving people excuses, but like, people can't afford their rent. People can't afford to put food on the table. So how can you make this abstract concept important to them? So a lot of times I've been walking in a retirement community. So a lot of times I open the door, they're like, well, I don't have kids in school. This doesn't apply to me. I was like, actually, everyone votes in school board. But why it's so important is because we need to grow the future the way that it's our future, basically. So it's who's going to take care of you in your retirement home. It's who's going to bag your groceries. It's who's going to, take care of your grandkids. Like, this should be something that's important to everyone. But it's how do you break through their stress, and also how you provide options. So if they are interested in getting engaged, a lot of people in my party knock postcard writing because they're like, oh, it doesn't really matter. But if someone who like maybe isn't mobile, or someone who doesn't have a lot of time, but they are available from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m., they can write postcards. So let's not knock people's path to get engaged. Let's encourage it and then like keep going.
I'd like to piggyback on what you said there. I think a way to get people engaged is to become good storytellers. We need to tell these stories. We need to tell the stories. I mean, you go into communities where people don't have children in school. They're elderly communities, maybe 55, 65, 75, up till whatever. And I feel that, talking to them and saying, well, do you have grandchildren? Do you have nieces and nephews? Do you remember when you were a student? How would you have felt if 2 people in your class unalived themselves? How would you feel? You instead of just, saying, hey, we really need you to vote. That's a very, I think, boilerplate, very generic kind of thing to tell people, just get out and vote. Everybody knows to go out and vote. Do people do it? It's like going on a diet. Everybody knows what they need to do in order to get themselves where they need to be. But do people do it? Not necessarily. People know that they need to vote. The way that we're going to spur this, I believe, or one of the many ways, is by just being engaging, telling these stories, really having examples. So in one of our segments, we talked about different examples of how this new Project 2025 would impact people. We need to go out to the voters or the potential voters, first-timers, people that have been voting for a long time. We need to go out to them and say, this is how it's going to affect this person. Yeah, it doesn't affect you, but do you want to live in a society where this could happen to somebody? Maybe you'll get some awful people that say, absolutely, I don't really care about that. And those are the people that you weren't going to get anyway. But there are undecided people, or there are people that don't know they're undecided. They just didn't think that they were going to vote for school board because they don't have children that are directly affected by that. But I think if you really appeal, and I don't say this in a way that should imply any manipulation, because I don't think you need to manipulate people to vote. I think what you need to do is you need to appeal to their better angels, if we're going to use some
See, the
religious...
The problem I have with that observation is I worry that we don't know what team we're on. The one of the conclusions to your observation, which makes perfect sense to me, is, well, that only works if the person listening to it gets engaged to realize this is really an important time in our American history, and as a result, we have to step up to tell those stories and do those things. And I worry that the Heritage Foundation, evangelicals, radical conservatives, those that are behind and have written Project 2025, they're just more engaged than we are, of whatever we are represents. And as a result, they want it more to have the white Christian nationalist America than the alternatives, whether it be people of color, whether it be sexual minority, whether it be immigration, whatever the issues are, that team doesn't want it as much as those that are pushing what we're talking about.
And just to push back a little bit, and I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, but just a little healthy pushback. It's always what I've heard growing up, being politically, if I say it's my job to watch all the news stations, it's my job. I really enjoy it. Republicans play the long game. They play the 50-year game. They play the 100-year game. So they'll put people...
Abortion was the proof of that.
Yeah, they played that game for, since Roe. They've been chipping away at it slowly and surely. And finally, They were able to affect change at the Supreme Court level. They were able to get their Heritage Foundation cronies in there. You got your Amy Coney Barrett, you have your Brett Kavanaugh, you have your people and the ones that were already there that were going to create a supermajority. I think that just by doing this work repetitively, telling these stories repetitively, I believe that Democrats maybe were not at the level of, let's say, the Republicans playing the long game. But by this practice, by doing it, maybe we're not going to win every battle. But hopefully, if there are more battles in the future and this isn't enough sand in every single gear to get some change later on, I believe that Democrats will come out strong in the future. I'm hoping, I have to knock on wood or pray to whatever it is that I need to pray to hope that we're going to develop a certain kind of long-term strategy and a long vision for what it means to be progressive. And I think that that's constantly changing. And I think we're still in our infancy. I'm tired, and I don't mean this to you specifically, but I'm tired of hearing, Democrats don't turn out for elections. Yeah, maybe they don't, because they're young people that don't get to live the American dream. They didn't get to buy a house for $45,000 in a neighborhood that now commands $1 million prices. They're not sitting on a nest egg that allowed them to send their children to beautiful universities and schools.
If I can say, while I agree with that, I'm critical of Tiffany's generation, Gen Z. I'm critical of your generation, millennial, all the time. It seems like I have so many friends that go, "Oh, Al, my goodness." The reason why I voice that is to try to illustrate the story of how important what you just said is. While that may be true, that the train left the station and it didn't bring our Gen Zers and millennials along with us, that only illustrates how dire this subject and the issue is. Because at the end of the day, again, I keep talking about baby boomers that have created Project 2025. We don't care. I'm not talking about me, but my generation of baby boomers, we don't really care as much as you think we might, because we're very selfish for what we want. And as a result, one of the principal things is to find ways to motivate Gen Z and millennials. And one of the perfect examples of what we've learned over the last 5 years, certainly, is the Supreme Court and who is in charge in appointing federal judges may be more important than our political elected officials, because the federal district judges and the Supreme Court are the ones that mitigate the radical conservative viewpoint. Where we've seen success on the drag queen ban, for example, is not in Florida, is in a federal district, and the federal district judge bringing that to a stop, almost to the point where the issue for Florida is completely dead. And that is true on so many related issues. It gets ultimately to the Supreme Court, and allowing the previous president to appoint 3 neocon Supreme Court justices has changed a supermajority that is allowing redefinition of long settled law. Abortion, for women's right to control their own bodies, is an example of it. But it could include gay marriage and the reversal of Obergefell to say, no, I'm sorry, we made a mistake in 2015, and that right is taken away. Sotomayor said recently that many of the things that she has participated in the Supreme Court over the last couple of years, she went behind closed doors and cried. And Sotomayor is signaling to all of us, the Supreme Court is so incredibly important to us, and the stories that we need to tell is representing our Gen Zers, representing our millennials. This is really critically important. When you do not participate, you don't realize the effect that you're going to have on you for the next 40 years. And that's what we're watching.
But I think that there's a problem in our culture, there's a problem in our language. When you look at the Heritage Foundation, they use the word heritage as if they're upholding this heritage of what America is. And also like with conservatism, what are they conserving? I feel like we should now take on the term conservatives to conserve the progress that we have made and go back to that. We should take it back. We should take back the things that are important to us, because they take the language away from us, and then they accuse us of weaponizing language when they have been weaponizing language since the very beginning. And the conservatives really saw how to do this, and they have a very amazing, intelligent people that lead them and lead their marketing campaigns, because they have changed the conversation in almost every single societal topic that is going to impact us and generations to come, including climate change. They changed it. They changed it to climate change, not global warming, became climate change, and then they put the one scientist out of 99 that decided that that's not real. And here again, I'm sorry, but like in us trying to be so right, we gave that person a platform. That person should never have gotten a platform. That one scientist should have been called a crazy person and moved on and be like, sorry, sir, you're completely wrong. Like, you shouldn't have the same amount of airtime as the 99 scientists to say, no, the earth is in trouble. And we gave them the same airtime. And ours, we're so caught up, and this is an issue that I think the left has, the conservatives, liberals have, and Democrats have, that we're so caught up in being right, we're so caught up in being woke, that we have forgotten, and we don't work together, and we cancel people so quickly instead of rehabilitating them. We don't allow for rehabilitation. We just cancel. You're wrong. And we try to put in new people in place, but that's not going to work, because those people then there's no change happening. There's no transformation happening.
It's so interesting that you make that observation. I just piggyback on perhaps why it's happening. This exploration of Project 2025, we start with looking at historical examples. I gave some starting in the 40s of how we've seen these moments. But there is a difference going on in this moment, and you hit the bullseye of it, in my opinion. The bullseye is the opposition that we're facing is willing to win at all costs.
Yep.
I'm going to lie to your face and lie to your face and lie to your face and lie to your face. And I'm going to tell the lie so many times, and it's going to be on Fox News so many times and Newsmax. And then MSNBC and CNN shows the lie from Fox News and MSNBC on MSNBC so many times that there's a whole cadre of Americans that go, oh, that's probably true. It's a lie. It's absolutely a lie. But the fact-checking no longer seems to matter. And as a result, a whole cadre of left Democrats, progressives, whatever terms that we want to use, including in the LGBTQ community, are willing to say, but here's the standard of the way we're going to fight the traditional fights that we fight, with an adversary that goes, oh, good, you keep the handcuffs on you, because I'm going to wallop you in the mouth over and over and over, because I don't have those standards. Now, I'm not saying that we unchain ourselves that way, but it's a support of your observation of.
I'm saying that we should. We have to learn how to get in the sandbox with Satan, and play with the same tools that they're playing against us. Because if we don't, like, this is what Obama did. He had the chance to put a Supreme Court and replace the one that had, I think, passed away, right? Yeah. And, the Republicans were like, oh, you can't do that. It's too close to an election. Yeah. And what did Trump do? Exactly that. Yeah. And the same people that said, well, that's not the way America is, they did it, and they knew it. And the thing is, like, like I said, we keep wanting to be right, that we're losing the fight, and we will lose the fight. And I think the fight is already lost. I'm getting ready to say, like, how are we going to respond to the fight that we have lost? And I don't want to be pessimistic, but this is just like, this is where I am. This is what I see.
I think we need to bring it back locally and state. Because I also think us telling people this is the most important election of your life, like, isn't working. Because that's what they said about Trump. And they're like, well, I'm still alive.
You cried wolf so many
Yeah,
times,
so
I
many
don't
times
believe
that
you
now
anymore.
it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So it's what Brian said, like telling our stories, like bringing it down to what is happening. So at the doors, I've talked to a lot of parents about how they, their kids face bullying. So like, what could a school board member do to protect that? So tie it into there, and that's how we're going to fight back. But it's going to take time. And like the millennials, the Gen Zs, we very much like quick reinforcements of what we're doing. It's going to take a really long time, and we need to tell our volunteers that. Like, okay, we might not win this election, but we built enough name recognition where the next one, like, we're going to get it. Mm-hmm. Or we lost this fight, but we learned from this, and now we're going to do this. Like, we need to be resilient, and I think that's what Democrats and progressives are, is we're resilient. We're sometimes petty, but we can be resilient, and we just need to remember that we are the change that we're hoping for, and start doing stuff.
Final point.
Oh, sorry. So final point.
Sure.
Okay. Just to kind of go over what everyone has talked about at this table. I do agree with your earlier statement. And again, pardon my French. America is really honestly waiting to have a Captain Save-A-Ho to come save them. And that's the reality. And the reason why I speak so frank and I guess vulgar is because my generation and, millennials, we've seen the BS. We've seen the bullshit, and we're just kind of like, okay, let's just cut to the point. I do agree. It does start locally. Mm-hmm. It does start with, again, that resilience of like, okay, we didn't win this time around, but we keep going. Like, people need to stop playing this game of, it's doomsday. It's like, it's doomsday every 4 years when it's election, but let's talk about are you doing anything in your community? No. Okay. So how about we start there before we talk about the national, level? Okay. Because yes, there are a lot of implements, especially with Supreme Courts, because, they have the most ruling, we saw it with abortion rights. And I think people need to kind of just start waking up and start telling their stories. And I see this issue all the time, especially within the LGBTQ plus community and within also my own like circle of people, especially older baby boomers that are part of the community. They're like, well, I don't want to tell my story. I'm like, you have to tell your story because like we had mentioned earlier in the earlier segment, you guys were the hippies, the rebels, you started it. The only difference between then and now is that in that time period when you guys were starting it, you were the minority. You were a small group. But now there's there's more people who are rebels and there's less people who are more conservative. So again, it plays into this marketing strategy because at the end of the day, what the Republicans are doing are they're really good at marketing. They have their business hands down. And the Democrats are just, again, trying to be right. They're trying to feed into your morality. It's like, okay, that's great. But if you're literally in a boxing ring and you're bloodied up and they're using brass knuckles on you, I think it's time to play dirty. And I think that's where we're getting at. It's if this is the road we're going down, it's only going to get worse. And the thing is, I think a lot of people think that if this does come into fruition, people are just going to be quiet about it. No, I'm going to tell you this right now, as I'm part of millennials and Gen Z and even Gen Alpha, because Gen Alpha are right now, they're starting to get into into high school, middle school, even some college, and I mean, this past early summer, we saw a lot of protests going on in a lot of Ivy League universities. And that scares the people in power immensely because their kids are starting to get together. The kids are kind of like, all right, you're not going to do anything about it. We'll do something about it. And we will play dirty and we will get our hands on the ground and do whatever it needs to make the real change that needs to happen. So...
Let's hope that's true.